to extinction treat people today? Can you believe the people who hunted them called them devilfish? Devilfish. Well, they're not fish, of course, nor are they devils. What they are is whales. Very friendly gray whales, in fact. So friendly that that's what they're called. These are the friendly whales of San Ignacio Lagoon, Baja California Sur, Mexico. It's here in Mexico where they winter over, and if you time it just right, you can see them swim right by the California shore as they transit along the longest migration that any animal on Earth makes. From the cold Arctic waters near Alaska, 6,000 miles to this whale nursery along the Pacific coast of Baja California.
When my grandpa was a boy,
as early as the 1850s, Yankee whalers trapped the grays in these lagoons and hunted them nearly to extinction. Nearby Scammons Lagoon is named for an early whaler, Charles Scammon.
Joining up with a fishing crew to go out and get a whale or two.
In 1946, international pressure mounted and whaling nations signed agreements to protect the California gray whale. By then, it's estimated that as few as 500 of the whales were alive. Despite the killing, the gray whales survive and now flourish, and some say they're back to their pre-whaling population.
Being a coastal whale, the gray whales are constantly interacting with human beings. They're constantly interacting with our boats, our nets, of course, the horrendous amount of pollution we put out. I mean, all of our sewage, all of our runoff. And what's interesting about the gray whale is they have succeeded where others haven't. Where other species have become extinct, the gray whale has bounced back from the edge of extinction and actually increased their population to today. They're probably very close to carrying capacity, which means what it was like before any people hunted them. And so we want to study them to find out how are they able to do this, because other species this hasn't happened with. There's well over 24,500 gray whales, maybe as much as 26,000.
At least they've gotten over the fear of man as a whaler that stopped some years back.
Look at that.
In 1992, the government decided the gray whale had recovered enough to move from endangered to merely threatened on the endangered species list. Here, they even survived the threat posed by a multinational firm intent on building a salt plant in the lagoon, a plan that has been derailed. These days, people come from all around the world to see, hear, and touch these gentle mammals of the sea.
I saw it on television 6 years ago, and I thought I want to do that once in my lifetime.
Their reward in some cases is to actually reach out and caress, even kiss, these 50-ton or bigger whales. In all the oceans, of all the world, this place is unique. It's the only whale lagoon on the Pacific coast of North America that is essentially unchanged. In 1976, the Mexican government declared it a gray whale sanctuary, and part of it is a huge natural area which scientists call a biosphere reserve. It's here, in San Ignacio Lagoon, that for a moment, a life force of the sea breaks loose from its bond with the water to reach out to a life force of the land. And one crosses a threshold to greet the other. The life force of the land reaches back, and this encounter is like no other. People come here leaving their own world for a moment to intersect with another, the world of the great whale.
We're just fascinated with life. It's exciting to know everything that's going on in our world, not just to be so obsessed with the human aspect, but we are part of an earth that encompasses every living thing, and every living thing is so important.
The whales really control the experience here. We go out into the ocean and we pretty much wait. We get near them and the whale decides that it wants to come and check us out, or get a little pat on the nose, or just swim alongside our boat, see if it can race us. The whale's controlling the experience. The whale decides. It wants to spy hop, it wants to breach, it wants to put on a show, or it just wants to lay around, it wants to get pet. I think it's really exciting that the whale controls the experience, and generally the whale chooses to interact with us and check us out.
Oh my goodness. They are just a show in themselves, and coming out of the water and showing their big, beautiful heads, and coming all the way out and showing their whole bodies, the breach. The babies are so curious, and they come right up to the boat, and it is a really great experience to have that personal relationship for that boat trip, that you have known whales and have become in their environment, and they've accepted you.
It's so unusual to have animals that seem to want to get close to you. They seem to want to commune with you. And you don't see that with very many other animals.
That they're so big and so friendly. We sitting in a small boat, and if they do that with the tail, we're gone. And they don't. They just bump quietly. They're friendly and so great.
It's a combination of awe and a little bit of fear, especially when they come right at the boat and they're about twice the size of the boat. You can imagine them just flipping that boat over with a tiny flip of their tail, but it's amazing. Like I say, I've never seen anything like it in nature.
Now, here's something you just don't see every day. Humans call it spy hopping. We don't know what the whales call it. Spy hopping. It's where the whale swims vertically to push its head far enough out of the water so it can lift its eyes into the air. From this view, the whale can see what's going on the surface. Some folks say that it's what the whales do to scan the surface for predators. We're not quite sure. A big part of what makes San Ignacio Lagoon unique is that it's so remote. It lies about 550 miles south of the border with Mexico at the end of a very long, pretty bumpy road. It's about 2 hours from the nearest town, and that town isn't very big either. From the air, it's easy to see the isolation. An expansive mouth opens wide at the inlet of the Pacific Ocean. Its shallow waters stretch along shell-covered benches and wash into the land a few miles into the Baja Peninsula. Since it's so shallow, the water is relatively warm. And since it's not fed by any fresh water, it's salty and buoyant. Together, the warmth and the buoyancy make San Ignacio Lagoon a perfect whale baby nursery.
The natural environment of the lagoon in Baja is an estuary, although it's kind of an interesting estuary. It's not like the ones we have around here. Our estuaries tend to have salt water going into them with the tides and fresh water coming in from the land. They have far, far less fresh water coming in Baja. And so these estuaries tend to be more salty. They're what they call reverse estuaries. They're also very, very shallow, and they're not developed. They don't have channels through them. The channels are natural channels. So the gray whales kind of have to pick their way through so they don't become stranded. They're truly unique. They produce a lot of fish, a lot of invertebrates for the people down there, and of course, they're the nursery where the whales have to go to reproduce.
In and around San Ignacio Lagoon, it's a pretty harsh environment for humans, so there's very little development.
This lagoon is so unique because it is so undisturbed. As far as development, we're in tents, we're in cabanas, we're getting our power from the wind or from the sun. And so we're really trying to have as little impact on the lagoon as possible. And that's really what you see here. You see this lagoon in its very natural state as, the missionaries or the native Indians would have seen hundreds of years ago.
It was in this harsh environment that fishermen and their families lived, harvesting a living by fishing the lagoon and the nearby ocean. Jose Francisco Mayoral is one of them. He stands proudly at the tiller of his panga these days, motoring visitors to see his whales. You'd never know from his demeanor that he started all of this. It was he, they say, who first encountered these friendly whales back in 1972, when he hardly thought they were friendly. Fearing for his life in his fishing boat, he tried to escape them, failed, and found they just wanted to, well, rub noses with his boat, so to speak. The tale of the friendly whales of San Ignacio Lagoon was born and has spread around the globe. Francisco says, "I believe they're showing us that humans can coexist with animals. They're teaching us a lot, because at one time they were persecuted, they were attacked, and now the whales are showing us friendship and teaching us great lessons."
San Ignacio was the first lagoon I ever visited when I went to Mexico. I came in by boat, and it's an extremely beautiful lagoon with a treacherous entrance. So it was exciting coming in. We made it. Now, I didn't realize at the time the captain had done this 50 times before, and it was sort of like he was half asleep. But to me, it was like landing on the moon. And as soon as we got in, literally in the entrance channel, we began seeing gray whales. Some of them followed us in, some of them were spy hopping, some of them were mating in front of the boat.
The boat drivers here have such a sense of what is happening out there with the whales. They are not aggressive, and they wait. They just glide along smoothly, and the whales just happen to kind of, it's a magical dance between the boat driver and the whales, and they all kind of know the dance, and they do it together. It is really beautiful. The drivers are very knowledgeable, you can tell.
Watching whales in this way is unique to San Ignacio Lagoon, especially because once the whales swim into water controlled by the U.S. government, a whole new set of rules apply. The U.S. Marine Mammal Protection Act makes sure the whales rule the ocean, but people here still thrilled to see them.
I think people like to come out on the water to see whales in their natural habitat, wild and not contained in any kind of human barrier. They're very magnificent to see. When you see one, they're huge, and they're a lot bigger than you imagine them to be.
Well, I think it's important to see whales because it'd be like an experience and a memory, like to tell people when you get back home and at school.
Since the whales travel in the open ocean here, they're harder to spot, but sometimes come close enough to see.
We live so close to the coast, and it's an experience that, you know, they would remember for a long time. It also would help them, oh yes, I was a Girl Scout and we went whale watching and saw whales, and it would just be a really good experience for them.
The gray whales may come closer to Dana Point, California than any other tip of land in all of California.
We see a phenomenal number of whales off our coast, largely in part because of the geography, and that the whales, it's speculated that they use the headlands as a landmark in their migration. So they like to come close to shore here, and thanks to the design of our harbor, you can get out really quickly and see them quickly, and it's just a phenomenal thing for our city. It makes us very unique. No other city can claim that they that they have such great, wonderful visitors coming every year, like clockwork too, and it's really just a wonderful thing for our residents and the visitors too.
Some marine biologists say that the whales actually use Dana Point as a navigation aid on their trek from their feeding grounds in the north in the winter to the calving waters in Mexico. More often than not, they're a bit offshore, coming south, but on the way north in early spring, mothers and their calves have been known to come very close to shore near Dana Point. That's where people in California get close to the whales, which in federal waters again are protected by law, which basically says that mariners can't get too close and can't interfere with their route.
I think I'm like a lot of people. There's something really mysterious about them. I mean, there's a whole world under the ocean out there that most of us don't get to see, and they're just so majestic and graceful. They're just wonderful. Like, why do people go, see lions in the Serengeti? I mean, it's something very special, I think, and it's kind of neat because you never know if you're going to see one, and if you are, you kind of feel blessed in a way that you saw a whale, especially if they jump up out of the water or show you their tail. We don't know how to communicate with them. It's that whole mysterious thing, and they're just beautiful, graceful, gorgeous creatures.
Scientists have been coming to San Ignacio for years now, learning about the whales, and the whales have probably learned something about people, too. Much of what the scientists have learned is about the whales, but there's also something about our own human environment they've learned, too. The whales and their lagoon are something like the canaries in a mine, revealing how our human activities are affecting us.
In light of the fact that there are so few places that are this pristine, we have to save them. We have to work as hard as we can. And when we're trying to weigh the pluses and minuses of business interests over ecology, so it's time, I think, that we tip the table a little bit in favor of ecology.
And while just about anyone can come and see or touch them, There are some rules in place to protect the whales from too much human contact here. Only the locals can put boats in the lagoon, and there are special areas set aside just for whales, so they won't be disturbed by activity, although human-made noise most assuredly passes through the water.
Well, I think it's really exciting for people to learn about how important oceans are to human beings, how oceans help provide the support systems in which we all live, and how our actions can affect the oceans just as much as the oceans affect us. And it's exciting to see people go back to their own communities at home and bring those messages back to the people they love.
Since the lagoon and its surroundings are so important, the United Nations named it a World Heritage Site in 1993. And not just because of the whales. It's an entire ecosystem.
High species diversity, in other words, lots and lots of, and I want to qualify this, native species, species that belong here, not introduced species. High species diversity is always indicative of a healthy of a healthy environment. We want our environment healthy. There's actually two things here, high species diversity and appropriate standing stock. Standing stock is the number of individuals per species. We want to see both of those moving back to what they were before we showed up and changed things.
It's a unique place where arid desert, salt flats, and ocean lagoon intersect, and it's home to many species, on land and in the water, and to those who live in between, like the endangered leatherback and green sea turtle.
The East Pacific green turtle, or also called the East Pacific black turtle, as we've come to find out, is different from the other green turtles that you'd find in the Atlantic. And these turtles come to feed here, and there are nesting beaches here in Mexico as well. But they also migrate a great distance and are also really vital to the community here.
In fact, it may be that when the tide goes out is when the fruits of the ocean become more readily apparent.
We're right in a beautiful wetland, which is home to so many birds, so many fish, octopus, scallops, shells, all those kinds of things. We have mangrove forests. It's just a beautiful, beautiful ecosystem all around us. And after a few days, I'll start to say to them, when, a whale's coming up, I'm like, hey, look, barnacles are breathing, Because not only is a whale coming out of the water, but so are their barnacles, the little crustaceans that live on their little backs, And then we start talking about, wow, that barnacle's got to travel all the way to Alaska and back too, and what kind of adaptations does it have to have? Where are these birds going? What are they eating? So it's really exciting to find out all those different interactions in the ecosystems here.
San Ignacio Lagoon is in the middle of the largest natural protected area of all of Latin America, the Vizcaino Bioreserve. It covers 2.5 million hectares of natural habitat for a lot of flora and fauna species, including many which are endemic, which means that they're solely found in this area. This is one of the world's last great ocean-oriented wild places. It's easy to see the legacy firsthand, simply by overturning some of the rocks left dry by an outgoing tide. People can see how ocean and sea life, such as the octopus, find a haven here.
The octopus are very neat. They're very exciting. They also have been, especially now there's great fishing pressure on the octopus. You can find octopi in this lagoon all over in the tidal areas. Though more and more they're getting taken for food. And so what we'll see, as I've seen in other areas of Baja, that you won't be able to find them in the intertidal anymore. You'll have to go a little deeper, maybe snorkeling to find them. And when they're all wiped out from there, you'll have to actually scuba dive to find them. So there is great fishing pressure on the octopi all over Mexico right now. And I think we'll see great changes in their populations if our demand for them doesn't change.
Such is the respect that locals give to this delicate environment that they make very little impact with their own lifestyle. Wind and solar energy provide their power instead of generators and petroleum products.
Our experience in San Ignacio Lagoon was made extra special after we found a mother and calf together. For nearly an entire day, we were able to spend quality time with them. This is where the bonding, the teaching, the nurturing for a gray whale calf begins. Mom is teaching the newborn how to navigate through the water, just how to be a whale. And it's because they are in these special waters that neither has to fear predators. many of which they'll encounter just as soon as they leave from here on their journey back north. We first found them in the morning as they were calmly swimming through the lagoon. Careful to distance ourselves from them, we shadowed the two of them, seemingly oblivious to us, or anything else. As we motored alongside them, we were witness to the dawn of a new age, as one generation passed the code of life to another. Only in this case, it's the life, and for what it's worth, the genetic history of whales that we watched in passing.
The mothers, I think, like our species of mothers, they are maybe, some are more protective than others, and some let their calves, especially once they get older, they get to they have to experience the world and live and survive in it, just as we all let our children, you know, walk a little ways, you know, beyond us, so that they can know, okay, that's not safe, come back. Yes, I think those mothers, you know, if you see the gray whales, they actually are very protective of their calves. And of all of the whales, I happen to know this for sure, that they are the most protective.
San Ignacio Lagoon is a unique environment. Here, the whales come just to the edge of their own natural waters, and we come just to the edge of our natural land and air. And our cameras cross just under that threshold. The whales cross just above it. So we reach past our natural, normal environment to make contact. As we left, we departed wondering, what drives us? What drives them to meet here? And after our human legacy with these sea creatures, they still come to greet us, as if with open arms to say, hello, friend.
It's a great experience, and I thought, what is this? It was magic. You forget everything around you. You just focused on them.
I think we have an obligation to, as you know, the species that has declared themselves the most intelligent beings on the planet, we need to work on our record. And you know, if the gray whales were judging us right now, would we pass the test? Well, maybe we can do things a little bit better. Maybe we can be a little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more clean in the way we interact with this ocean.